Today's show. Corey Tulaba from No Ceilings joins the program, and we talk all things Trailblazers in the NBA draft. You're not going to want to miss this one. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. Today's show, a very special one, joined by a first-time guest to the program, Corey Tulaba from the good folks at No Ceilings. Doing great draft work. Corey, how you doing?
Mike, thank you for having me on, man. I am fantastic. It's draft season. We're mere weeks away. So all of the research that we at No Ceilings have been doing for not just this year, but now multiple years now on some of these guys is about to, culminate in a one-night event that, is our favorite night of the year. So I'm
2 nights now, baby.
2 nights. That's right. You're right. 2 nights. One night and one late afternoon on the East Coast. Where I'm
from. What is with the afternoon? It's like a 1 o'clock start on the West Coast on a Thursday or something. Like, don't they know I have a day job? What's going on here?
I am taking it. I'm going, you know what? As an East Coast guy, who anytime I get to go to the West Coast and, I was in Portland for the Nike Hoop Summit a couple of months ago, and I was like, is the late night game over at 10 p.m. and not starting at 10 p.m.? What?
The late night game might be over at 9:15, baby.
Yeah. I was like,
out of there.
So for me, the draft's going to be over by like 7 p.m. on that Thursday. Great.
Yeah, I thought they were making it 2 nights to be a television event, and then they made it in the middle of the day. So I don't get it. But in any case, we're here to talk not about interesting TV ratings from the good people at Disney, but or the bad people at Disney, hard to say, but draft stuff. No Ceilings released a mock draft today. Well, this is actually Monday's show. We may be recording this a little bit early, hard to say, but on Friday, No Ceilings, the group over at No Ceilings, the team there, released a mock draft. Let's start there. The Blazers have 7 and 14 in the lottery, as well as 34 and 40. At 7, you have the Blazers taking Matas Buzelis. In some ways, falling, quote unquote. It's hard to know with draft range with anybody in this draft, but like falling to 7. Why do you like Matas to Portland, or do you like Matas to the Portland? I know it's maybe not your pick all on its own.
Yeah, I'm a little lower on all of the Ignite guys. So, if I was picking, I'm not 100% certain that Matas would be my selection, but, the way we do things at No Ceilings is the good, aspect of having so many people on the team. It's not just one person's opinion weighing too heavily. So I will say that I know that the Blazers like Matas. He's a guy that, again, if you look at the kind of forwards that they have, he has a lot of qualities that they do like. And if you're a person who believes that shot is going to come around, right? Like if he is going to shoot it more like he did his senior year at Sunrise Christian rather than, the percentage that he shot in the G League, then I think you have reason to be optimistic about the type of player that Matas can be. I know that Franz is a guy who is typically his comparison because, white guys that are tall and
he's a big white guy who dribbles, a little bit. Yeah. Big white guy who dribbles, yeah.
But I actually think that he has like a potential outcome to be more like a Jaden McDaniels because I was really impressed by his defensive playmaking and his ability to move. And as he gets stronger, I think that's kind of an avenue and a player that I think he can emulate. So, if you're building out a Blazers team in the fashion that they are, and obviously they believe in Scoot in a big way still. Scoot's going to be awesome. Shaedon is an incredible prospect that I think is going to have a big breakout year next year. Ant Simons is one of the maybe most underrated players in the entire league because he's hidden right now, but this dude can score with the best of them. And even if, ultimately whatever they move on from Simons, like everyone's trying to trade him to the Magic now. Whatever the case is, like if you're going Shaedon and Scoot, like Matas as a third guy or a fourth option as an offensive player is a really nice luxury to have potentially one day. And I think that the way that I view this draft is not so much that even if you're swinging, you're not necessarily swinging to hit the ball over the fence. You might be swinging to, maybe it's a ground rule double. Maybe it still goes over the fence, but it just takes a bounce first. And I think that Matas, out of some of the swings, there is a little bit of a safety of floor because he has good size. He has he's shown more as a shooter than some of the other guys. He can dribble without dribbling the ball off his foot, and some of the passing stuff, they're flashes. They're not totally fleshed out with the decision making, but there's a lot to like there. And I think just with the intel that we've heard and just the fact that we know that as far as archetypes go, it's something they truly value. I think the way that our mock played out with some of the other guys that we really like to Portland, I think Matas would be a good fit there.
Okay, let's run through this exercise, though. On the no ceilings mock, Alex Sarr goes first. Clingan, Donovan Clingan jumps up to 2. In a shocker, the Wizards take Clingan at 2. The Wizards could do whatever they want. They literally have a totally clean slate. They can do whatever they want. Houston goes Reed Shepherd at 3. 4 is Reece Ashe to the Spurs, the French connection. 5, Dalton Connect. 6, Stephon Castle. So with that on the board, if you're there, you said this wasn't your pick, you're at 7. Who's still there? Nikola Topic, Rob Dillingham, Cody Williams, Ron Holland, those types. Who would you be interested at 7?
Yeah, at 7, I'm a big Topic guy, but it is a tricky fit. I think that if you're going to invest in Scoot, you really have to invest in him, and you have to trust him to be that kind of lead ball handler. I'm a big Bub Carrington fan, which is a bit out of left field. He's not typically mocked, this high, but yeah. I think a 6'5", 6'8", combo guard who shot 50% on long twos and is one of the best pull-up shooters and is one of the youngest domestic-born prospects is a really interesting player. But yeah, in this scenario, Buzelis is kind of the area where you go, as far as fits go, yeah, I like it. But I also like, maybe Kel'el Ware there. If, right. I'm personally a big Zach Edey guy. I think you might be able to get him at the second lotto
at 14
selection still. So maybe you play that game. But this is an area where your tiers start kind of jumbling into who fits me best now. For us, Dalton's been a popular guy that we've mocked to Portland. I heard he had a great workout there too. But if he's off the board, I do think Matas is a pretty good upside swing. And I know for a fact that Portland, the way that they view the draft is that they're going to bet on potential. That is something that they're committed to doing. So as far as upside swings go, like comparably, yeah, maybe you get Tristan da Silva at 14, but he's kind of who he is, right? Like he's, right. So Matas can maybe be more than that, but I'd probably go with one of those, or I'd go with Cody Williams because I'm still a big believer in Cody if I'm looking for that kind of combo-y forward.
Yeah. So in terms of like them betting upside, does that mean you feel like it's pretty unlikely they take the collegiate seniors, Connect and Edey? Like, do you think they're off the board based on that read?
I don't. Because I still think that Connect has untapped potential because he had a really unique journey. He's not just an older prospect that has played at Tennessee for 5 years and he just, he's just stronger, bigger, all that stuff. He was a JUCO guy and then he found his way to mid-major and then, he blew up at Tennessee. But he's been one of these guys on an upward trajectory where it wasn't just a straight line, though. So I still think there are ways in which he's going to improve his game. Another guy, again, he had a great workout with Portland from what I've heard, and they like a lot. Now, Edey, I think he's just so productive that at 14, if Edey's there, it's one of those things where like you can play it a little safer at the 14th pick.
Right.
Because maybe some of the swings that you're taking, it's like, it's cool to swing, but are you swinging at a pitch that's in the dirt? right? Like sometimes that's what you have to convince yourself of. But as far as, I mean, look, as far as upside swings go, I didn't even mention Tijan Salon. So,
Right.
that's another guy with a lot of hype and also kind of fits what they like. And his measurables, now that, the European prospects were out in Treviso, Italy, we have those measurements. I mean, 6'10", 7'2" wingspan, off-ball guy. He's another interesting guy. Look, Blazers got options even in the scenario that we presented on our mock draft.
Yeah, I do think they have options. I think 7 and 14 and maybe some other drafts, you're like, we missed the top tier of guys. It's so wide. Like, it's so wide from after the top. Generally, the top two you see are for most mocks, most services have Sar and Risa Shea, and then it's really wide open. Like from 3 on down, it's really wide open. You mentioned Nikola Topic. I want to talk about the pick at 14 on the No Ceilings mock and a couple other folks because there's some reporting the Blazers are going to have a pretty juicy workout next Tuesday. I want to talk about that one. Join us in that second segment, won't you? First, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, whether that's superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to choose from. For your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts are guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, still chatting here with Corey Tulaba from No Ceilings. Okay, you mentioned you're a Nikola Topic believer, and I agree. Weird fit. But like at some point, the Blazers are so you're actually in the first segment. Your assessment of the Blazers, you're probably higher on the team than I am, which is funny. But that's sometimes how it works. Maybe proximity has worn me down a little bit. But I'm interested. Topic is interesting because he's so young. He's 18. If he is. He has a potential to be the best offensive player in the draft just because of his feel, creation, and just big ball handler with size. But he's not like a non-shooter primary next to Scoot seems like a really bad fit. That's not what you would want. But then the other wrinkle is that he has a partially torn ACL, and I'm not a doctor, but that sounds like someone who has a torn ACL and that they're softening the reporting. I don't know how ACLs work necessarily, but partially torn and torn seems like the same thing to me. He could be a redshirt guy, right? Like he could miss this entire season if he undergoes surgery. Apparently, he's going to come to the U.S. and meet with some team doctors, and the way the new CBA works, he will have to release his medicals to, I believe, the top 15 teams in the draft. So folks will know. How much does that information change your opinion of him, even outside of the fit with the Blazers?
Not too much. I mean, if the medicals came back where it was like, this is a standard run-of-the-mill ACL injury, I'd be like, okay. Like, to me, all of these guys, none of them are leading you to the championship next year. Even the Dalton Connect or a Zach Edey, you're not winning. So if you believe in Nikola Topic, he's worth waiting for. And look, if you're worried about winning games, like next year is not the year because next year's draft is super strong. So you might miss a year of Topic, but then you're going to get Nikola Topic and Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey or, one of these other guys, Nolan Traore, who made a huge impression at the Hoop Summit in Portland, right? So, to me, it doesn't change much if it's just an ACL injury. He's young. He's 18. Medical science has advanced a lot as far as ACLs go and how players recover since Derrick Rose tore his ACL and completely had his career derailed, right? So I think that it shouldn't really weigh too heavily on what the long game is. Fans, I understand you draft a player, you want to see that player play, but hey, we see a lot of these guys who redshirt that year, Chet Holmgren, Joel
I was thinking of
Embiid,
Chet,
Blake
yeah.
Griffin, Ben Simmons, all of these guys come back and they hit the ground running right away because they've been around the team for a year. They understand what it takes to be a professional outside of actually playing in the games. They know the system. It's a much smoother transition. So it's, to me, it wouldn't be a bad thing. It would just be disappointing as a fan for the fact that you want to watch the guy that you drafted. But as far as like, am I going to drop him down my board because he tore his ACL? No, it's not something that is too worrisome for me because that's all the information I have, right? It's just partially torn. And if it's just partially torn, it's going to heal and he'll be fine one day.
Right. Yeah, I think like for the Blazers specifically, they are a team that can take a redshirt season. They're a team that if they really believe in the talent, a redshirt season is like a totally reasonable approach with them. Okay, No Ceilings at 14 has the Blazers taken Kyshawn George. And reportedly, Kyshawn George is coming to a pretty juicy workout. This is from Jonathan Wasserman over at Bleacher Report, who says, hearing about I'm reading a tweet that he sent out. Or whatever you call the post on those websites now. I call it a tweet. On the tweet he sent out, he's hearing about a 3-on-3 workout next week in Portland that's supposed to feature Ron Holland, Tijon Salah, Ryan Dunn, Zach Edey, Eva Misi, and Kyshawn George. That's a fun little 6-pack right there. That's a lottery 6-pack right there. Sell me on George, and then we can talk about these other guys and maybe how they might fit with the Blazers.
Yeah, 6'8", 6'9", ball handling guard that shot 40% from three, and maybe is still growing. Like, was not supposed to be a one and done prospect and just kind of like got an opportunity on a really bad Miami team. Like, they were one of the worst teams in college basketball from an enjoyment perspective, where you're like, let me turn on some Hurricanes basketball. Like, you would never do that unless it was your job to do that. And he was the guy that stood out as like, wow, but who's interesting? This Kyshawn George kid. So, I mean, when you look at the way that the game is played now, positionless, you want to switchability, you want guys that can play on the ball, you want guys that can play off the ball. Like, when you just watch him operate with the ball in his hands, like, they're just kinesthetically, the way he moves, you're like, he kind of looks like Brandon Ingram a little bit. Now, he doesn't have that athleticism. He doesn't have that burst. He's, that's stuff that he's kind of lacking. But with the growth spurt that he's gone through and the body transformation, there's probably still a little bit more upside to improve athletically. He's not going to all of a sudden be Shaedon Sharp, right? Jumping out of the gym, but there's some room to improve there. But at the end of the day, he's still 6'8". He still shot 40% from three on like good volume. And you look at the stroke, super clean. He's got some passing feel. And if you're going to look at guys that you want to be able to play with the ball in your hands, but also be able to play off of Scoot and Shaedon, then this is a guy who can do that. And he has a positional size that theoretically he could play next to all of those guys all at one time in some smaller ball lineups. There's a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, relationship there, where Gavoni was the guy who called Miami about him. Gavoni, obviously used to have the relationship with Mike Schmitz. So who knows? I'm sure he's got great intel on him from that perspective. But he's just, for somebody who is raw, he's very polished. And I think that's really intriguing.
Yeah. And I will just say, Blazer fans are like, 6'8", you say? Taller, it's like taller than 6'5". Are they allowed to add players with such a massive frame? I typically see George in other mocks a little deeper, but he's a first round guy. Like, everyone agrees, he's a first round talent. Like I said, the draft is so wide open that if like the general consensus is that this dude's going to go 22, like there is almost no difference in those spots in this draft.
Yeah,
or at least it seems that way.
Speaking on consensus, I honestly, like, I've come to the point in my career where the consensus thing is just kind of like funny more than anything else. Like,
sure,
was Cam Whitmore the consensus 20th pick last year? These things,
not.
Like there's a chaotic nature to the draft. And, obviously there's only X amount of players that get drafted. So these players are going to be in certain ranges typically, but all it takes is one team to like a player or a bunch of teams to dislike a player, or not even dislike a player. Maybe Cam Whitmore was the second guy on all of these teams' boards, but their first guy was still available and all of a sudden he drops. So I wouldn't pay too much attention, especially in this draft, to the consensus feeling, because I think it's going to be chaotic.
Yeah, I also think in general there is an echo chamber thing with this stuff. Is like, you see one of the big creators out there, a bigger name, make a mock draft, and you say, well, I have that dude at 38 and he has him at 19. Well, I got to bump him up.
Right.
Like I gotta, and I think you get that. Not that like everyone does that, but I think there is a tendency for a tendency for groupthink to sort of, particularly this time of year, as we head into about 3 weeks left before the draft, a tendency for groupthink to kind of coalesce because everyone wants to be kind of right, as opposed to like some folks actually are really the other way, right? They're like, I'm sticking to my guns no matter what. Like I really believe in this one French point guard. But it's let's talk about some other guys who are going to be in that workout, because you mentioned you're a little bit lower on Ron Holland. He's someone who I think could be a target for the Blazers, and I'm curious about Eva Misi as well. Let's talk about them to close the show, and also we'll touch on some other workout stuff. I got some news for you. Join us in that third segment, won't you? First, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why LinkedIn Jobs is the place you got to check out. It's got the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of this while making the process easy and intuitive. Look, the professional people you already know are on LinkedIn sharing their professional bona fides. So why not go chase them down where they're already at? Hiring is easy when you got that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. There's already 2.5 million small businesses that are using LinkedIn for hiring. So join the gang and get the quality candidates you need. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. Still chatting here with Corey Tulaba from No Ceilings. Okay, so the Blazers have, this week, they worked out Dalton Connect. And I was told by member of the Blazers PR staff that they were also going to hold a workout on Friday, June 7th. And then I reached out on Friday morning because I hadn't announced it yet. And I said, hey, what's up? He said, no workout today. Or there wouldn't be no availability today. The language is a little unclear in the text. But from what I understand, the Blazers may have held a workout today. They just didn't hold a media availability and they didn't publicize it. And that follows a relatively a trend that seems to be popping up this week. According to ESPN's Jonathan Gavoni, the Blazers also held a private workout for Donovan Clingan. The difference in private and public workouts is probably just preference of the agent. It's not like super meaningful. It's just like the agent says, no, don't put my dude's name on here. If you want to work him out, you can, but it's like, you're not going to do the whole rigmarole, and you're not going to bring Mike out to the practice facility to talk to him. That's what they're preventing. They're preventing me from asking the hard-hitting questions. I wonder do you think Clingan is a fit there? Before we get to the other guys, I know I said I teased that I want to talk Ron Holland and Misi, but do you think Clingan is a fit there? And what are your thoughts on it? I know you're an Edey guy. Is Edey the third center on your list, or
Clingan's
or
Clingan's my number one prospect in the entire draft.
Wow. Okay. So if the Blazers were to get him at 7, this would be a huge hit for you.
Yeah, and I believe that in ESPN's latest mock, that's who they had mocked to Portland. Yeah, one, he's absolutely massive. I'm an East Coast guy. I'm out in New York. I've seen UConn a lot over the last couple of years. And, last year I was more on the skeptical side of Clingan. He was only playing 15 minutes a game, and it's like he was awesome in those minutes, but you're like, hey, can I see you play more than 15 maybe if I'm going to take you in the lottery? Like, why are you only playing 15? Obviously, he had a great player in front of him. UConn has built this culture and, or potentially could be a dynasty depending on what happens with Hurley, right? But when I saw him this year, he had added elements to his game that made me believe more in his ability to play in modern NBA systems. And I think the most underdiscussed thing about his game is his passing and his playmaking. Like that really system pass, that he can really pass. That system that they ran at UConn is not easy. It's very complicated. There's a lot of movement, and his ability to hit guys without turning the ball over in particular was the thing that stood out. We know what he is as a defender, right? Like he is going to protect the rim at 7'2" with a 7'9", 7'7" wingspan, whatever standing reach. Like, he's just a massive human who's going to prevent people from scoring. But offensively, there's a lot there to like as well. I think the shooting form is pretty good. I've spoken to members of NBA front offices who believe that, him in particular, there's a chance he might shoot it. He's not a very good free throw shooter despite the form, and he, only took 6 threes or something this year. So, it's definitely a leap of faith, but he has a lot of other things that I think you can like from an offensive perspective, because of the fact that his processing is so fast that, when you have a guy like Shaedon Sharpe, who's so good cutting off the ball and shooters everywhere, like Clingan in the short roll, hitting Simons and all these guys, like, it's very intriguing. So yeah, if he's there, it's an absolute home freaking run. Like, I even, I've spoken with members of the Blazers front office, and they said, who should we draft? I said, Clingan. This is before he kind of went off on his little run, and now he's potentially a top 3 guy. But this is when, the Blazers still thought, well, maybe we'll be at 5, maybe we got a shot to move up in the lottery. And I was like, yeah, I love Clingan. I love, so I'm a big Clingan guy. I think he plays winning basketball. He still has high upside, but he has a really high floor as well. And I think those are the guys that, can really maximize their potential, because they get the reps on the floor, because they're not making so many mistakes that you have to take them off the floor. So they're able to build the trust and then actually develop the other parts of their game that are considered weaknesses.
Yeah, there's a world where Clingan is available at 7. I think Sarr is going to go 1 or 2. That could potentially impact it. But depending on what Houston does at 3, I think the general logic is that the teams between like 4, 5, and 6 don't need centers. I would argue Charlotte can draft a center.
I like Mark Williams a lot, but like, he's not somebody that if you believe that this guy is going to be an impact player, you're not like, well, we already have Mark Williams, guys. Like, similarly to DeAndre Ayton. I think DeAndre Ayton's a good center, right? But he's not somebody that I'm like, we can't draft another one. I feel similarly. Detroit with the new front office, obviously they could just say burn it down, right? Like, it's a wild card.
While I buy the logic, like, I understand why everyone's kind of saying that. Okay, maybe that's not what San Antonio would spend a lottery pick on. Detroit has a couple young centers. Even they've been loading up on young centers for a couple years. And Mark Williams in Charlotte. Like, I get the logic, but I think Detroit or Charlotte could draft Clingan, and like, I don't think if he gets past 3 and Houston or whoever might trade up to get there with Houston, I don't think he's a guarantee to drop. But I think there's a world, and I think there's a world where the Blazers trade up to chase him, but I wouldn't bet on it. But I do think, like, there's been some reporting from ESPN that they're one of the teams that's interested in, and if they think like Corey, if you think that's the best player in the draft and you can get him at 3, well, then you trade up and get the best player in the draft at 3. Like, that's just how you run a basketball team. That's the way you do it. A couple other guys. You mentioned you're a little lower on Ron Holland. I think he could be there at 7. I think he could be there at 14. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I've never been a Ron guy. Last year's Hoop Summit in Portland, I just left the week going, this is the number 1 prospect in the class. And to be frank, I felt that way about just about every prospect that I saw there, including Cody Williams, DJ Wagner, Zach Riche. Like, I just went like, oh no. But Ron in particular, I just went like, he's supposed to be the motor guy. Like, where's the motor? Where is the energy in this that he's supposed to be bringing? And now, to be fair, in the game itself, he was excellent and he brought that. But the stuff I saw that week in the practice settings kind of made me a little hesitant to make him this no-brainer top 5 guy coming into the year. And then I kind of thought his season with the Ignite was kind of a disaster. I know that if you look at the raw numbers and you see 20 points per game in the G League,
he scored, yeah.
Like, you're like, oh man, like, some of his advanced stats, like his pretty good steal and block percentages, he rebounded fairly well. But to me, it was it's a misuse of a developmental year, because I don't think he is going to be the kind of player that you look at and go, this could be Jaylen Brown. This could be the guy who was really bad in his freshman age season, and he turned it around, hit his 100th percentile outcome, and now he might win the finals MVP, in some
so freaking
circumstance, good, yeah. Right? Like, I think he is more like And people are going to listen to this and be like, this guy, I'm turning this off. I'm going to disregard everything. Like,
no, we're like a half hour into the program. They're already committed. They're already committed.
He's got, like, I look at him and I go, could he be Corey Brewer? Like, that could be a good outcome for him. Like, who was the 7th pick in his draft? Like in hindsight, it's easy to be like,
can I tell you, Corey, I loved Corey Brewer coming out. I loved
yeah,
him.
of course.
I was like, dude, he's so long, he's so fluid. Like, I thought Corey Brewer was like
most outstanding player in the Final Four, 2-time champion.
I thought he was going to be so good.
And he was a great role player. Right. And he can go off. He got you 50 one game, right? Like he went off in the playoffs, right? Like that's the kind of player I think Ron can be, or like a Josh Howard, to use another like older player. Yeah. Like these are good, impactful players, and if he turns into that is worth a 7th pick, 14th pick in this draft. Does he want to be that?
Right.
Or does he want to be the guy who is playing with the ball in his hands and trying to score 20 and trying to make plays, and then it ends up in an 11 turnover game and a 50-point blowout to the Salt Lake City Jazz? Who does he want to be? And I think that's what you have to find out. I don't know. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I do think he's slipping down draft boards, and that can either help guys or hurt guys, right? That sometimes you get into a better situation, and sometimes guys feel it never clicks, right? Like you're saying, like it never clicks. Like, hey, you thought you were this, you are a couple rungs below on the ladder, and guess what? That is a long-term many millions of dollars career if you can make it work, or you're out of the league, right? Or you're playing somewhere if you don't.
You're bouncing around and you're just a reclamation project, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Again, like this is there's so much talent in the league that it's like it's so hard to just be like, these teams are stupid because they passed on Ron Holland or whatever. It's like, I don't know, maybe, but also maybe not. Like, because the history of the league also says maybe not.
I think he has the physical profile to be an NBA player easily. Like easily checks those boxes. Because of that, he might be worth a flyer at 14. But
sure.
I have some concerns about him. I only saw him in person one time, and I will not say that I came away from watching that game saying like, that's an NBA lottery player. It was like, I think he was better. It was like, I think he was better than Ashton Higgins. That's what I left the gym and I said, I think I'm pretty sure Ron Holland was better than Ashton Higgins.
I have an Ashton Higgins award actually that we give out to prospects because in his draft year when he was at Kentucky, he played with Quickly and Tyrese Maxey. Mm-hmm. And I kept going, guys, you should really not drop Tyrese Maxey down your draft board like you are. You have to understand he's playing next to Ashton Higgins. So every year we give out the Ashton Higgins award to the prospect that was affected the most, or the point guard that has affected a prospect the most negatively because of their inability to understand what the pecking order probably should be.
Well, I will say the G Leagues, with all due respect to London Johnson, he was not a positive impact on the G League Ignite.
No.
But okay, we're running a little long, but I'll get you out of here real quick. I think another name, like the Blazers, maybe in the market for a big, maybe Clingan, maybe Edey, maybe Kel'el Ware, who you mentioned. Eva Misi might be working out on Tuesday. Is he a lottery guy? Like in your eyes, where are you at with him?
No, he's not.
Okay,
I think he's interesting, because he's got real legit size, although his wingspan is pretty subpar for how tall he is.
Yeah, he didn't measure well, yeah.
Great athlete, right? Good raw tools. He's another guy at the Hoop Summit where I was like, I actually went back. I was like, he was there? I saw this guy practice for a week. What? I think that we see like Gafford and we see Derek Lively and we're like, right. Rim pressure bigs that, provide the gravity. He's just not for me. I think it's not to say he hasn't had moments. He gave Kyle Filipowski the business when they played Duke. So like there are some stuff there. He can move. They're interesting tools, but he had a 3% assist percentage. That's not great. Like he doesn't, no passing. He hasn't shown any passing. So if he does any passing, it's like, well, he didn't show anything in college. So how am I supposed to guess that all of a sudden he's going to be Bam Adebayo? And then defensively, like block percentage is 7%. If you want to be around 10, if you're like a real shot blocking prospect, and given the fact that his wingspan is a little shorter and he doesn't have the real length, I would take a flyer on him later in the first round. if he slid to the second round, but I don't think there's a whole lot separating him from a guy like Adembona, who the Blazers worked out and I heard was
Right.
awesome in their workout. So like, I wouldn't spend the asset on him in the lottery when you can get a guy like that later.
Right, and the Blazers have 34 and 40, and Bono will probably be there. So it's like if you like him at about the same. Well, maybe in this high-powered 3-on-3 workout that may or may not be open
That's
to
true.
the public based on what the Blazers
if he can
doing.
defend Zach Edey, I mean,
yeah, he's gonna lock up Zach Edey. He's gonna be, when he's gonna guard Ryan Dunn. He's gonna look great. They're gonna be like, wow, he's really shut him down. Ryan Dunn can't score. Amazing.
He didn't hit a shot. Weird.
He didn't shoot. Why didn't he take it? Why didn't he attempt a jumper? Corey, if folks are looking for more of your work, where can they find it?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter/X at Corey Tulaba, and then all of the larger work that we do at No Ceilings at No Ceilings NBA. That's on Twitter, on YouTube, NoCeilingsNBA.com for our written work. We provide every day, Monday through Friday, for free in your inbox. At 9 a.m. Eastern time every single day. We have a No Ceilings Plus subscription that we give intel. If you had subscribed to No Ceilings Plus, you would have known that Nikola Topic had a 6'6" wingspan back in February. So we have a lot of cool stuff that we do there. For those who may not be familiar, I actually used to work for Mike Schmitz as his video editor on the film sessions that he did at ESPN. I've kind of taken over, for him. I've carried the mantle on. I've been doing film sessions with prospects that you can find on the No Ceilings YouTube. So just NoCeilingsNBA.com. You'll find all the links, and you'll find all the work from all the great people that work at the site.
Yeah, Corey's the best. The reason why I reached out to him is because I learned a lot from him on the internet, and I said I need that expertise directly to my listeners. I'm a subscriber to No Ceilings. It is in my inbox when I wake up in the morning. I often read it before I get out of bed. I'm like, all right, well, let's. It's draft season. What can I learn? So go do it. Check out the YouTube channel. I will link it below in this if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're an audio listener, it'll be linked in the episode description. Come back for more shows tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow's show is, I believe, I'll just tease it, and then maybe this part will get edited out. On tomorrow's show, DeMichael Cole from The Commercial Appeal is going to come on, and we're going to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies chasing Donovan Clingan and what that might mean for the Blazers at 7. We got a hypothetical trade show for you. It's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.